Guess who's back in the house? Hope that you guys are having a wonderful day. Christmas just came early because the Boulet brothers, or maybe Amazon, released episode 3 early. Normally it comes out on Tuesdays, but the episode actually came out yesterday. I think it's because there was a mix up with episode 2. Amazon actually didn't place episode 2 in the correct folder. And so to watch episode 2, you had to actually type in the full name of episode 2 to actually watch it on Prime. Because last or this past Tuesday, when I woke up early to watch the episode, I couldn't find it on the actual season 3 Dragula page. So here we are today, and we get a early episode, which I was excited about. So we start off in the boudoir. I was calling it workroom, but it's actually the boudoir, and the contestants are trying to decide who went home last week. Was it Saint Lucia or was it Yauska? And everyone is in agreement that it is Saint Lucia. And so in walks Yauska, and she was basically stating that during the extermination challenge, where they had to drink cow's blood and eat cow organs, that she just seemed defeated. And so I think it was also Eva who said that Saint gave everyone a hug before the challenge. Therefore, she knew that Saint was probably going to go home because um, she didn't seem like she was really into the extermination challenge. So fast forward, there seems to be a argument between Maxie and Priscilla. Priscilla states that she actually was shocked that Maxie wasn't in the bottom because of her runway look. And we also know that Priscilla has a slight crush on Saint. And so Maxie was stating that, not only am I a burlesque performer, but I'm also a stripper. And this was a performance challenge where the performance weighed as well, it was equal to the actual look. And I would say that I'm not sure if the contestants were allowed to watch each other's performances, but based off of what we, the audience, saw, I really didn't see a lot of Saint Lucia's actual performance because um, she was practically edited out of that kind of like that montage that we saw. And so I think that Priscilla judgment may have been clouded by her crush on Saint Lucia. But actually, Saint Lucia has like a lot of fans, and I was looking at some of the fan art, and the fan art from the previous episode looks so good. So I actually have to like go back and look at her outfit. Um, from the previous episode in season 1 because like based off of what they did for her outfits, they looked amazing. So I have to go back and look back at that. And so we go to the maxi challenge, which is called like um, drag rock monsters, where the queens have to put together a quintessential rock look in homage to the women of rock, and they also have to work together as a group to form um, rock rock bands, and so the actual groups are chosen for them. So group one is Eva as the lead singer with Dahlia, Maxie, and Priscilla. And group two is with Madeline, Landon, Yauska, Hollow, and Louisiana. And so, um, as the Boulet brothers are talking about which teams will be together, I notice, oh my gosh, like they're getting kind of like the information about the challenge through a video screen message. And so we had that during episode two. And so I hope that they continue with this, um, because it shows just pre production, the planning that went into place to put season three together. And so the budget is increased, the staging looks beautiful. Um, I love the direction that they're going. And this particular episode, I also noticed um, the number of cameras that are in the the boudoir and throughout the competition. I really didn't notice this the previous episode, but for one scene, we have like 1,000 different camera angles coming at us every second. Some of the scenes, it was um, a little bit shocking, just all of the angles that we were getting. But I do like all of the angles because we're able to see reactions from almost each person that's in the scene, and we get that in um, the different rehearsals with the groups. And so, group one with Eva, their name is going to be Slag. Slag is a British word for slut. And I actually call all of my close male friends slags because it just it's a softer word for slut. I don't I think I was like watching I was watching some type of English movie and the word was used, and so I text that to my close male friends, my close gay male friends all the time. Um it's become our way of saying good morning and good night. And so Maxie is really pushing back from Eva's direction because Eva wants to do this hyper sexualized female rock gods, and Maxie just wants to paint her entire body blue and not wear padding, not wear breasts, and just do this kind of like more androgynous, non-binary character. And Eva says, "No, we're all going to have pads, breasts, and you can't show your genitalia." Because we know that Maxie, during her performances, likes to show her genitalia. And so group two with Madeline, they're called Coven with a K. And they decide that they're going to do a blood ritual in the before the actual performance starts. Um, which I was actually curious how this was going to work. They were actually going to use needles to prick their fingers and then squeeze blood into a candle and then light the candle on fire. And based off of the rehearsal, immediately following that, um, Madeline would actually remove a hypodermic needle from Hollow Eve's face. And when she did that, of course, there would be blood. And so during the rehearsal, they stated that Madeline would then proceed to lick the blood off of Hollow's face. And so I don't know if I could actually do that because if I'm going to lick blood off of any of your body parts, we're married. Like, we're going to the justice of the peace and we're going to be official. I will not lick some random person's blood, even if it's for a reality competition show. So that was interesting. Um, and so we actually get a great confessional during the group um, rehearsals that Hollow is saying that she found it ironic that Dahlia was making a huge scene about Maxie mumbling something under her breath about Dahlia. And Dahlia was saying that, if you have something to say it to the person's face. And so Hollow says that Dahlia should actually practice what she preaches because she heard from multiple castmates that Dahlia was actually going behind her back, talking about her and her kind of like filth element, and that she found it shocking that being on the Dragula show that another contestant was actually disgusted by the filth aspect of her character, Hollow. And so at one point, Madeline also brings up that Dahlia is her granddaughter and Dahlia has said something negative behind her back and she was very emotional about it. Dahlia overhears this, and then because her teammates are actually coming into the boudoir after their rehearsal, and so actually Hollow kind of like seizes the moment and says, "Why are you talking about me behind my back?" And Dahlia comes out and says that Hollow has been keeping rotting cockroaches and used feminine hygiene products in their room. And by room, I don't know if she meant their hotel room. I don't know if she meant the workroom, boudoir. She didn't go into detail about it. Um, and so I could then see why um, Dahlia was uncomfortable talking about the tampons that Hollow was actually keeping wherever she was keeping them. But the rotting cockroaches, I'm actually curious how we're going to see this in her performance. And so I think it was unfortunate that Madeline actually took that moment to actually discuss the issue that she was having with Dahlia because they are in the same house. Um, they're the first legacy contestants on the show. And I think that's so cool. That's incredible that it's kind of like a history making moment. But after the competition, they will still be in the same house, and that they could have worked it out without it um, being aired out in front of everyone else. And so I kind of figured that they would sometime have a moment to discuss what happened. And so I love kind of like dialogue that occurs because of this kind of like this confrontation between Hollow and Dahlia. Dahlia says, "I'm not used to being subjected to bodily fluids." And Hollow, without missing a beat, says, "I'm not used to being subjected to glamour, but here we are." And I'm perpetuating glamour all over my filth. I just loved that comeback. I'm gonna add that as my like mantra of the day. I'm not used to being subjected to glamour, but here we are. Um, and so Team Coven, they go to rehearsal, and it seems like Hollow and Madeline are actually um, they have a power grab with Madeline being the team leader, but Hollow actually being the person who's going to be in charge of this blood ritual on stage. And they actually we don't get to see it, but it looks like they don't rehearse enough, and it's actually a lot. They actually have a lot going on with the ritual and then the performance. And so Madeline says that, she thinks that they will be good. Like once they get into costume, like everything will just fall into place. Um, and so the other team, Coven, they go back to the boudoir and they start to get ready for the performance. And so this is when Dahlia and Madeline actually have a heart to heart. Apparently, Madeline did something while they were both in New York. Um, she did something to Dahlia that betrayed Dahlia's trust. They don't mention it, but I'm curious to know what it is. If there are any people from Reddit that are watching this, please leave a comment below. Um, I am so curious. It seemed like it almost tore their family apart. And so I'm really curious as to know what actually happened. And so we get kind of like a confessional from Landon. And Landon is actually talking about his process for getting ready. He says that, drag queens, they move their genitalia by hiding it between their cheeks. And Landon, when he gets ready, he actually moves his nipples into his armpits. I actually thought that Landon had some type of like chest surgery to remove his breast because he is always just flat chested. And so I was actually shocked um, that his process is to kind of like move his breasts into his armpits, which like I don't even know how that would work. Like I can't move my nipple. Like I I don't know how that would even like work. Um, Tape, of course, but I'm actually curious what type of tape you would use to do that so that it actually holds. And so fast forward, we go to the actual um, stage show. The Boulets look incredible. Um, they are wearing red and black latex outfits, a swimsuit that's red with these really beautiful, like retro 70s futuristic shoulder embellishments, with gloves that towards their kind of like biceps, they're belted with these incredible latex thigh high boots that just look like they've been rubbed with some type of oil. They're so kind of like slick looking. And so we learned that the guest judges are Peaches Christ, and Peaches Christ is a legendary drag performer. I believe she's based out of San Francisco, and I actually saw her with who was it? Oh my goodness. Bianca Del Rio. They did a kind of like a drag parody of Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, and this was a promo for the Ryan Murphy show Feuds. And It was incredible. I just like stumbled upon it actually. I was at the West Hollywood Library writing, and across the street from the library is the Pacific Design Center. And so I was leaving the library and I saw a crowd of people going to the Pacific Design Center. So I was like, oh my gosh, like there's an event, I'm gonna crash it. And so it just happened to be this performance with Peaches Christ, Bianca Del Rio, and it was Bianca Del Rio as um, the Betty Davis character, and Peaches Christ as the Joan Crawford's character. And so it was really good. Bianca was hilarious. Peaches, I don't know if they kind of like, I feel as if they've actually had done this this wasn't their first time doing it, because their chemistry was so good. It all worked incredibly. And then, strangely enough, one of Madonna's backup singers from her Vogue days performed. I think her name is Mickey, but I could be butchering it. But she's now a a highly sought after jazz singer. And then we actually got to see episode one of Feud. So that was a really cool experience. So then Henry Rollins, who I've known about him since I was a child. He was the front man for a band whose name I don't know. Um, but he has just always been a very dreamy male. He's very husbandly. And I know that he actually also was a guest judge on Drag Race. I don't remember the season. And so he's like a rock legend. So it was just fitting for him to be one of the guest judges. And so my top, we get the runway looks first. And I actually tried to like find these looks online, and I couldn't, because I wanted to show you guys what they looked like. But my favorite is Hollow Eve. Um, we all can say what we, and her kind of like her rants, but her drag, she's been killing it with her drag looks. And so she was like this demonic rocker. She had these kind of like really beautiful, kind of like almost like clay attachments to her face. She had red contact lenses. She had the Spanish moss on her face, coming out of her nose, on her cheeks. Um, she also had this really incredible swimsuit that was kind of like layered. She had almost like these like dark angel wings that were more kind of like um, minimalist. They weren't feathers, but they were kind of like hard structures, and this kind of like really cool red curly wig, and horns. And so my top look of the week. Landon looked so badass. The coolest thing about his outfit is that he actually had a guitar that he had covered with like some type of red plushy fur material. And at one point, he lit the guitar on fire, and then he kind of like attached it to something, maybe his belt, and started spinning it while it was on fire. That was incredible. Landon just looks sexy um, in drag character. He had locks. He looked basically like Johnny Depp from like the Pirates franchise. The hat that Landon made looked incredible. It also had kind of like this that's the same kind of like red fur material, and he had some type of like red thread around his wrist. He had some type of kind of like lace on his kind of like shirt. not lace, but some type of kind of like webbed material to show just his chest. Um, he looked great. My third favorite was Dahlia. Dahlia looked like straight from a character from Mad Max going to Burning Man. These really cool, almost like football player shoulder padding with fur glued to the top. Also, kind of like this like fur skirt, a long black ponytail. One thing that I didn't understand was kind of like Dahlia's male chest was showing, and it almost seemed like an afterthought. So I didn't really understand that part. That was my only critique for Dahlia. But other than that, she looked great. Um, Maddie was like this elevated rock goddess. She very had like a very simple bodysuit that was lace with her hair looked incredible with like a white streak towards the middle. Um, Maxie didn't have my favorite look. Compared to the other girls, she does look like she needs some padding. Like it just kind of like because she's so thin um, that it really stood out after kind of like Eva's critique. And so she was all blue. Her makeup looked great, but it was just kind of like I really didn't get like drag rock monster from her look. But at one point, she pulled a dollar bill um, from her anus, and it said F capitalism. And then she ripped it up into pieces and kind of like blew it out of her hands, which was a cool stunt. And so when the actual, and they all changed for their rock looks. And one thing that I would have loved to have seen was um, the groups perform separately, but they created this kind of like this one um, performance. And so because like the stage is so dark, that in some of the characters, I just couldn't tell them apart because we didn't get an introduction of the groups before the performance. But they both just looked incredible. They were all in character. The rock looks really looked great. And actually, I should have Googled the song they're performing. I'll look at it. I'd never heard the song. I don't know the group. I'm not familiar with the singer, but I actually want to check them out. Um, and so, kind of like going into it, it all looked incredible until Hollow basically broke character because um, when Maddie actually walked to Hollow to take the hypodermic needles out of her face, apparently she did it too soon. And so this is where the rehearsal was crucial because from the audience, actually, I thought that it came too late because I thought it was a part of the ritual. And so Maddie takes the hypodermic needles out of her face and she just shut down and said something to the fact of, why did you do that? And she stormed off stage. And the production crew runs after her because they have no idea what's going on. And so she says that she has to shove a dirty needle into her face. And I was actually confused why she had to do that. And so it just kind of like, we, as the audience or the people watching, we knew that it was going to go to Eva's group. And so the performance ends, of course. Slag wins the challenge, and then Eva wins the overall challenge. And so they Slag gets great critiques. Everyone loved them. It shows that they really rehearsed. And then when we get to Coven, um, the judges were just kind of like confused as to what happened. Hollow explains it. She apologizes, and she realizes that she's the reason why her group didn't win. And so Peaches Christ actually had a good critique of them, is that for the blood ritual, which I didn't really notice this, but apparently they were like looking at each other to see what was going to happen next. Um, and then because it was 5 people in their group, that it kind of looked a little bit disorganized because they didn't utilize the space that they were creating. Um, and as far as their looks, they didn't have a theme to their looks. The other team, I thought it was cool that they taped, um, they put tape over their like nipples, and also Maxie looked great in kind of like padding and breasts. And so of Coven, Louisiana and Landon are safe, leaving Maddie, Yauska, and Hollow in the bottom. For the extermination, they had to get tattoos, and the other contestants had to choose the tattoos that they were getting. And so, with those 3 people in the bottom, I kind of like had an idea who was going to go home just based on the tattoo experience. And unfortunately, it was Yauska, who I love Yauska's look. And before we learned that, actually, Yauska had almost like a meltdown um, backstage because she said that she didn't know what the Boulets wanted from her, um, because she thinks that she's the perfect creature of the Boulet universe. But they gave her a bad critique last week, and she was actually in the bottom with St. Lucia last week. Um, and so Louisiana tells her that you are magic. And when you walked in, I had never seen a drag look like yours, and just know that you are incredible. And actually, I feel like we don't get a lot from Louisiana, but just from that interaction alone, I'm really starting to like Louisiana because she didn't have to say that. Um, but it was glad that she was able to tell Yauska that before she left. And so I'm really sad that Yauska um, is has left the competition, and I hope that she comes to LA to perform because I would love to kind of like see her kind of like after the whole experience, and how after watching herself, how her drag is elevated, because I thought that she was incredible during the premiere night. And so I I love seeing queens when they're able to take their drag to the next level. And so this concludes my review. I hope that you guys um, liked this particular episode and enjoyed the review. Leave your comments below. I'm dying to know if you guys think that if Yauska should have left or if someone else should have left this particular episode. Um, but I kind of figured that Yauska would have left because, like, Hollow is really kind of like, she's killing it. She's really killing it. And she hasn't really had a bad critique from the Boulet brothers. Um, so, have a wonderful day. And if you haven't already, please purchase a copy of my book. Um, it is one of my greatest achievements. in life. And when you support me and purchase this book, you support my channel. You can go to the pinned comment to find a link to actually purchase it. Until next week, have a wonderful day. Besos. Mwah.